So here we are in my very, very first Facebook Live, actually, my first live stream that I'm the host. So if you're just tuning in, this is Diane Wingert, host of the Driven Woman podcast. This week's episode of the Driven Woman podcast is with my new friend, Abby Herman. Abby is the host of the Content Experiment. She is a content strategist and a former teacher. Now, I love former teachers who have become online coaches. Why? Because they know how to teach, and they especially know how to break things down and make them simple, streamlined, and user friendly. And that is like chef's kiss for somebody who thinks a lot and has a tendency to overthink and maybe make things a little more complicated than they need to be. This is such a gift for me. You know, a lot of content creators just say, as soon as they sit down at their computer or their microphone or in front of their webcam, their mind goes blank. They have no idea what to say. I have the opposite problem. I have so many things that I want to say that focusing, narrowing down, and making my content bite size and consumable is really more of the problem for me. So I was really excited to interview Abby Herman because this is her gift. And one of the things I love so much about Abby's work is that she creates minimum viable content strategies. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, it's a really important one that's really good to know, because a minimum viable content strategy fundamentally says you do not need to be all the places all the time. You really don't. And if any coach, consultant, course creator, guru has told you so, dead wrong. As a matter of fact, that is probably the quickest way to burn out as a content creator that I can even begin to think of. So the minimum viable content strategy is so much more sensible, streamlined, and most of all, sustainable, because all content creation really is a long game. There's no such thing to an overnight success story when it comes to content creation. You are literally looking to create content that connects with people, that attracts the right people and repels the wrong ones, and that most importantly, you can continue to show up for week after week, because it does take time. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to my interview with Abby Herman in this week's episode, fear not. I'm going to break down those 6 simple steps for you in this live stream. And then if you want to go back and listen to the entire interview, you can. And if you really want to get all the goods, go listen to Abby Herman's podcast, The Content Experiment. Her strategy is really great because not only does she have the minimum viable content perspective, but she considers all content creation to be an experiment. There is no right way. There are multiple ways, and we can try and experiment. If we like it and it has good ROI for us, we keep on going. If it doesn't, or we don't like it, we experiment with something else. That's beautiful for people who really don't want to do a lot of work and not be sure that it's actually bringing them what they have in mind. So Abby's 6 simple steps of her client journey strategy are: first, you got to create awareness. Now, if you're new to the online space, you've rebranded, you've done a pivot, or you are offering new things, the first thing you got to do is get eyeballs on you, or in the case of a podcast, ear holes. You got to get into their ear holes. So if people don't know who you are, the very first thing you need to do in creating content is create awareness, brand awareness. Who are you? What do you offer? Who do you serve? And how you help? If you break it down that way, it's actually pretty simple. Like, I am a business mindset coach and former therapist who helps female solopreneurs upscale their business, right? Simple, right? Okay, so we are creating content that does that, that creates awareness of who we are, who we serve, how we serve, and what we offer. Now, while you're doing that, you're also creating content that helps people go to the next step. You can think of it like a set of stairs. So the next step is educate and inform. You can do some of these things doubled and tripled up even, for example, because if you're familiar with my content, I often feel like I'm creating awareness of who I am, who I serve, and what I have to offer while educating and informing people. And the third step is demonstrating expertise. You won't do a very good job of educating and informing if you do not have expertise to share. So instead of thinking of these as first I do this, then I do that, then I do the next thing, you can think of it as a journey that a person can take from I've never heard of you to I'm a raving fan and long-term client. They have to go through phases. A lot of people refer to it as being similar to dating, and I suppose there's a lot of similarities too, because obviously you're not going to make a lifelong, exclusive, romantic commitment to someone if you don't even know who they are, right? That doesn't even make any sense. So we start with creating awareness, and you can create awareness through all kinds of ways. A lot of people these days are creating awareness through social media. Now, when I first started podcasting, I thought that my podcast would help create awareness. But a podcast is long form content. And that's expecting an awful lot for someone who doesn't know who you are or has just heard of you to spend 30 to 45 minutes to an hour letting you talk to them or share a conversation they had with someone else with them. That's kind of a big commitment for someone who doesn't know you. So most of our create awareness content is going to be on social media because somebody can just quickly scroll. If you happen to catch their eye, you're creating some awareness. If you catch their eye and they really like what you're offering, they might even follow you. But most people need to see you quite a few times before they'll even do that, before they'll even hit like the first time. So remember what I said about this being a long game? That is why, because there's an awful lot of people on social media who are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to create awareness. So you got to play the long game, but having a system makes it so much more sustainable, even though it takes time to get the desired results. So you're creating awareness. Then a few people become aware of you. Great. Now you have the opportunity to educate and inform them. You don't have that opportunity until they're aware, right? Next step, you're demonstrating your expertise. Now, I'm not talking about reading people your CV or your resume or quoting all of the places that you've been certified by or went to school. No, most people don't want to hear all that. But they do need to know that you deserve to have their attention because you know what you're talking about, not just because you seem smart or are entertaining, but that you actually know what you're talking about because you're probably not the only one talking about it. Once you have done that, you're now bringing them along and developing the relationship. Now you want to try to convert them to customer. There are so many differences of opinion about this, and it really depends on your business model and who your ideal customers are. But converting someone to a customer may be a high ticket offer. And there are people who teach that you can go from someone who listens to your podcast to buying into your $5, $10, $20,000 high cost coaching or consulting program. There are people that do that. There are other people who go from converting someone from a passive follower on social media to a passive listener to their podcast to making that very first client or customer purchase of a $27 e-product. So there's everything in between. It really depends on your business model, who you serve, and what your specific offers are. But the first time someone opens their wallet to you, whether it's for $27 or $27,000, that's a really important step because that means you have attracted their attention, you have educated and informed them, you have demonstrated their expertise, and they are now sufficiently attracted to you, to your message, to your offer, to how you help, that they are willing to make an investment. This is a really, really important step, but it's not the end unless you want to only sell people one thing one time, which means you're going to be doing an awful lot of marketing. You've probably heard it said that it's easier to keep a customer than to get a customer. And I think in most cases that's true. So the next stage is expanding your offerings. Now, admittedly, I have not done a great job of this because I have been selling one program and a follow-up program for the last 2 years. I know that it's time for me to expand my offerings. Why? Because I have a lot of really happy clients who have gone through the programs that I have, and they want more, and I haven't yet developed more, but I will be soon, and I'm gonna be announcing that in an upcoming live, so stick around. Anyway, you've converted them to customers. Now you need to expand your offerings so that they have a reason to stick around. If you only have one thing to sell, even if they love it, even if they say it's absolutely life-changing, transformational, they'll never be the same, they wanna tell all their friends, it's still one sale, one time. It's one of the reasons why, like in the event planning industry, I would think it would be very difficult to be a wedding planner because unless you're like me, been married more than once, you're probably only going to schedule and plan and pay for one wedding. But most coaching, consulting, and most service-based solopreneur businesses run by the kind of people that I work with, you have multiple opportunities to offer things of value to the very same customers. And there's a lot of smart marketing in that because think about it. If you don't expand your offerings, you will be constantly looking for new people, new eyeballs, and taking them through the first 4 stages, which take time. So it's really, really smart to always be expanding your offerings and test the market. I mean, if you have current clients or customers, repeat business, you can ask them, what other needs do you have that I might be able to fulfill? Is there anything missing in my existing programs, products, or services that you would have bought if I had it to offer? This is really, really smart and very easy to do since you already know each other. The last step, and this could be one that lasts weeks, months, years, even decades, and that is the client and customer ongoing relationship, retaining the relationship. You know, you need to create content for that too. You probably don't think about it that way. But when I first discovered that so many of the clients that I have worked with in the past who are no longer current clients, maybe they would be if I had those expanded offerings, note to self, they're still consuming my free content. They are still listening to the Driven Woman podcast every single week and telling other people about it. So when you are creating content that really meets people's needs, they will stick around. Right? It makes a lot of sense. Now, unfortunately, because this is my very first live, and I really had no idea if I was even going to be able to get the tech right. I mean, I created this cool little banner and I put my little logo on it, and I managed to show up on time. And both my microphone and my earbuds are working. The streaming is going. Like, I feel like this is a huge win. I did not invite Abby Herman to join me because I figured if I was gonna make mistakes on my maiden voyage, I'd rather make them without inconveniencing her. But if you like this model of on the same week as the podcast episode that we do a live, if it's a solo episode, it's just yours truly. But if I have a guest and if they're willing to come and do the live with me, I think that would be a really cool way for listeners of the podcast to have an even deeper dive. So, if you like the idea of that, you can say something in the notes. We are coming up on about 14 and a half minutes. I was really only planning on doing about 15 minutes for this first one, but I see that there's a few people here live. I so love that you showed up for this. And let me know what you think about the idea of doing a weekly live that does a deeper dive on the podcast episode of the week. And if my guest is willing to join us, you could ask them questions. I can't guarantee that all of my guests will want to do that, but most of them are some pretty cool people. So I'm going to guess that many of them will. So it looks like a couple of you, and unfortunately, it's either the way I have this set up or I simply don't know how to do it yet. But I'm not able to see your names, but I do see of the people that are here that you really liked the podcast episodes, that the tips that Abby Herman gave were super valuable, and that it would be great to have my guest join us on these live streams because then you can ask them questions. And this is really what I was thinking. It's a great way to have a value add. One of the things that's so cool about a podcast is that you can listen to it while you're doing other things, while you're making dinner, while you're giving the dog a bath, while you're rotating your tires, I don't know, trimming the lawn, whatever you're doing, or meal prepping for the week. Okay, I'm not a meal prepper. I wish I was. It's probably a really good thing. But if you have questions as you're listening, then what? And people who create podcasts really do go to a lot. They are a lot of work. It is a labor of love. I love producing my podcast, but it is truly a lot of work and it's an expense. So, of course, podcast hosts want their work to be as valuable as possible. So, if you listen to it and you get benefit, whoo-hoo. But if you have the ability to interact with the host and or a guest and get additional benefit, I'm all about that. So I appreciate you giving me your feedback on that. It tells me that I'm on the right track. So I'm going to call it here at about almost 17 minutes. I'm going to call this first one a big success because the tech worked. People showed up. I didn't run out of things to say. And you've given me valuable feedback about my guests. So thank you for being here. I'm also going to go ahead and save this if I can figure out how to do it in the Driven Woman Facebook group. And stay tuned because I will be back with the next one next week. Bye for now.